Inside, I said I'm in a hurry.
Sir, the alarm went off. I can't let you through until we clear your bag.
I'm a congressional aide. That gives me clearance.
It doesn't exempt you from screening.
What's the issue?
Alarm on the bag. He's refusing secondary.
Sir, you need to comply.
I'm not authorizing a search.
Then we can't let you board. I'll inspect the bag now. Don't touch that.
Bag's unzipped. We've got a...
The terminal room stayed tense after the alarm beeped across the checkpoint. Passengers froze. A TSA officer stepped forward and blocked the metal detector lane. A man in a tailored suit tried to push through. He flashed a badge and said he worked for a powerful congressman. His voice sliced through the room. He ordered the officer to stand aside. The officer did not move. His training told him something felt wrong. The aide's bag sat on the table with a strange weight. The officer saw nervous eyes and shaking hands. The aide said his position gave him special treatment. A supervisor arrived and backed the officer. The aide refused a second search. The cameras kept rolling. Phones lifted. The officer reached for the bag. Everything changed fast. The airport woke before sunrise. Rolling luggage wheels echoed across polished floors. Loudspeakers repeated boarding updates. Security lanes stretched toward the ticket counters. TSA Officer Daniel Brooks stood at his post with a steady stance and sharp focus. He scanned each passenger and watched for nervous movement, strange packing, or rushed behavior. His shift started at 4:30 a.m., before coffee lines formed and before crowds filled every corner. A tall man in a suit approached Lane 3 with a fast stride. His badge hung from a silver clip near his chest. He glanced at the line ahead and shook his head with frustration. He tapped his phone over and over. His eyes twitched with impatience. The boarding pass check agent flagged him forward. The man handed over his ID with a forced smile. His voice carried impatience and irritation. The agent cleared him and guided him toward the conveyor belt. Brooks watched the man closely. The suit looked neat. The shoes held a high shine. The bag appeared flagged with a special luggage tag. The tag did not match any airport status group or airline privilege. The man placed his briefcase on the belt and walked toward the metal detector. Brooks stepped closer to the conveyor. His training told him that the bag felt out of place. Agents watched posture, breath changes, and small movements of the hands. The man's knuckles showed tight tension. Sweat lined his forehead despite the cool air in the terminal. The X-ray monitor beeped. Officer Jensen waved for Brooks and pointed at the screen. The briefcase showed a dense object near the center of a clothing bundle. The outline looked rigid and rectangular, thicker than a standard electronics case or tablet. Brooks signaled for a secondary search. The man lifted his arms to walk through the metal detector. Brooks stopped him. The man turned with stiff shoulders and a defensive tone. Brooks told him the briefcase required a hand search. The man snapped back with annoyance. He said he worked for a congressman with national influence. He pointed at his badge and said he had clearance beyond standard passengers. His tone raised higher. A crowd gathered behind him. Phones lifted. Brooks did not move. He informed the man of procedure. Every passenger followed screening rules. Titles held no exemption at the checkpoint. The man refused the search. His face turned red. He said the officer risked his job and his future. He said he would call federal contacts and have the entire lineup replaced by noon. Brooks kept his posture steady. The supervisor arrived and backed Brooks. The man crossed his arms and refused to open the briefcase. Brooks stepped around the conveyor. He placed gloves on his hands. The man yelled in protest. A gate agent across the seating area filmed the scene on her phone. Brooks reached for the briefcase. He used a clean swab across the handle and sides. He set the swab into the explosive trace machine. The screen blinked for a moment, then cleared negative. Still, the internal dense object caused suspicion. Brooks requested the key. The man refused again. The supervisor warned him that noncompliance triggered detention by federal security rules. The man held his ground for only a few seconds, then surrendered the key with a shaking hand. Brooks unlocked the case. Inside, shirts and socks sat pressed against a leather pouch. The pouch held a thin tablet. Under the tablet, wrapped in cloth, sat a hard rectangular device with wires taped to the side. The crowd gasped. The man tried to speak, but his voice cracked. Brooks stepped back and signaled for the explosive ordnance unit. The supervisor evacuated both sides of the checkpoint. Passengers were moved toward the seating area. Officers formed a perimeter. The man tried to grab the briefcase and run. 2 agents tackled him and placed him in restraints. He shouted threats at everyone near him. More phones recorded. The area turned silent except for the beeping of the security machines. The ordnance unit arrived in protective gear. They examined the device and unwrapped the cloth. Inside sat a metal box wired to a portable power source. The team scanned for triggers or triggers linked to a timer. After careful handling, they cleared the device as a modified data shield. It held encrypted hard drives. No explosive materials were inside. The wires served as improvised cooling units. It looked suspicious by design, not by accident. Brooks documented each step in a written report. The man sat against a wall with restraints around his wrists and ankles. His voice faded to whispers. He claimed the drives held private documents for congressional work. He accused TSA of harassment. The supervisor reminded him that refusal of search violated federal law. An FBI representative arrived minutes later. Agents collected the drives and questioned the man. They asked where he worked, where he traveled, and what the data contained. He refused every request. Airport operations resumed. Passengers returned to screening lanes. Some whispered about the incident. Others shared recordings with friends. Brooks stood near the conveyor belt with calm eyes and an unreadable face. He filed the briefcase into evidence control. The man was escorted away for transport to a holding room inside the airport. Agents searched his phone and laptop. He had a flight to Washington, D.C., scheduled in less than an hour. That flight left without him. Brooks returned to the metal detector. He resumed screening passengers. The morning rush built. Luggage carts rolled through checkpoints. Boarding passes flashed across scanners. Officers announced new lanes to reduce wait time. The supervisor thanked Brooks for calm work under pressure. Brooks nodded without pride or frustration. He focused on the next passenger. 2 hours passed. Then the airport director stepped onto the floor. She carried a folder and asked for Brooks. She led him into the office near the staff hallway. A recorded call played from a speaker on her desk. A congressman demanded answers. His voice shook with anger. He said the officer humiliated his aide. He wanted the officer fired. He wanted security footage. He wanted a full apology. The director kept her tone firm on the call. Passengers followed rules without exception. End of discussion. Brooks listened without blinking. The director finished the call and turned to him. She said the incident would draw media attention. She said reporters would request statements. She said he should prepare for long hours of paperwork. No disciplinary action followed. Procedure held firm. Training held firm. Brooks thanked her and left. Outside the office, passengers whispered his name. Some approached and thanked him. Some clapped in quiet support. Brooks ignored the attention and walked toward the break room. He washed his face and wiped sweat from his forehead. The adrenaline eased from his system. He sat on a bench and breathed with slow control. The next shift arrived. Brooks gave a short briefing on the incident. Officers nodded with respect. Every checkpoint held risk. Every bag held a story. He signed out of duty and walked toward the parking lot. Rain misted across the windshield of his car. He drove home in silence. His phone buzzed again and again. Unknown numbers. Blocked numbers. He let them ring. Halfway home, a radio news station aired a report. Listeners heard that a congressional aide faced detention after refusing airport security rules. Witnesses posted footage online. It spread fast. The incident became a trending headline. Brooks turned off the radio. He kept driving until he reached his apartment. He parked, locked the door, and stepped inside. His kitchen held simple meals on the counter. His uniform hung from a hook. His living room looked quiet. He sat on the couch and rested his head against the cushion. He thought about the briefcase. He thought about the wires. He thought about the aide trying to push through the checkpoint. He felt no anger. He felt no pride. He only felt tired. A knock came at the door. Brooks stood and looked through the peephole. A man in a dark suit stood outside with a badge clipped to his belt. An FBI emblem flashed in the light. Brooks opened the door. The agent introduced himself. He asked Brooks if he wanted details from the investigation. Brooks nodded and stepped aside. The agent said the encrypted drives held sensitive communications between private companies and government contractors. The sources wanted legal protection for upcoming hearings. The aide tried to transport the data without secure clearance. His refusal of search raised suspicion of something worse. The agent said the device held no threat to the airport. The man likely wanted to avoid questions from security. The agent offered a handshake and said the case moved fast. Press inquiries filled every phone at the airport. The congressman avoided public statements. More footage surfaced on social media. Passengers shared the video of Brooks blocking the metal detector. The image spread across the country. After the agent left, Brooks sat in silence. His shift the next morning started early. The airport would feel different. New eyes would follow his movements. Some passengers would treat him like a hero. Some would treat him like a villain. He had no space for either view. Morning arrived. Brooks walked into the terminal again. His badge hung from his vest. Officers nodded as he passed. The supervisor handed him new guidelines for sensitive incidents. Any passenger with political ties would face extra documentation. The director watched from her office upstairs. Brooks returned to lane 3. The conveyor belt hummed. The metal detector beeped. The smell of coffee drifted from nearby shops. Passengers stepped forward with tired faces. A woman in business clothes smiled and placed her jacket in a bin. A family carried backpacks filled with snacks and toys. A college student hurried toward a final exam flight. Brooks screened each passenger with the same steady posture. No emotion. No excitement, no regret. A man with a laptop asked if this was the checkpoint from the viral video. Brooks said nothing outside procedure. The man nodded and stepped through the scanner. Hours passed without problem. Then a familiar face approached. A news reporter carried a microphone and a press badge. She asked for comment. Brooks repeated a single response. He referred all statements to the airport communications office. She tried again. He turned away and signaled for the next passenger. The day ended as it began. Quiet efficiency. No drama, no heated voices. Brooks walked to the parking lot after clocking out. The sky glowed orange from the sunset. He unlocked his car, opened the door, and sat behind the wheel. The job asked for patience. The job asked for calm. He gave both without hesitation. As he pulled onto the highway, a memory flashed. The man in the suit, the trembling hands, the strange wires, the loud voice demanding special treatment. The truth stood clear. Procedures protected every passenger in the building. Without rules, chaos filled the terminal floor. Brooks followed the rules. That was enough for him. He reached home, placed his uniform on the hook, and turned on the shower. The hot water washed away the tension of the day. He stepped out, dried off, and sat down to eat. His phone pinged with new messages. Some praised him. Some attacked him. He ignored them all. Later that night, he closed his eyes. The airport waited for him in the morning. Another line, another shift, another alert. He knew the rhythm and respected it. Every beep, every swab, every search protected lives. No shortcuts, no exceptions. His alarm waited for dawn. His badge waited by the door. The next chapter of the story waited in silence, already moving toward a new scene that no one expected. Morning traffic swelled through the airport roads. Shuttle buses lined the curb. Horns sounded across the pickup lanes. Inside the terminal, TSA officer Daniel Brooks walked the hallway toward the employee entrance. His uniform felt heavier than usual. The viral video pulled attention from every corner of the building. Travelers whispered when he passed. Some smiled. Some stared with judgment. Brooks ignored every glance. He clocked in and joined a short briefing in the security office. The supervisor read updates from headquarters. Extra media inquiries, requests for records, pressure from political aides who wanted answers. The supervisor reminded the team, stay professional, follow procedure, no comments to reporters. Brooks took his post at lane 3. He scanned the X-ray feed while Officer Jensen organized bins on the belt. The early crowd moved faster than most mornings. Passengers carried laptops and duffel bags with stiff posture. Nervous travelers asked if the waiting time looked short. Business travelers stayed buried in their phones. A middle-aged man stepped forward with a rolling suitcase and a laptop bag. He greeted Brooks with a calm voice. Brooks nodded and waved him toward the scanner. The X-ray showed normal shapes. Nothing odd. The man passed. Then a young woman stepped forward with 2 backpacks clipped together. She handed her ID to the boarding pass agent, placed the bags in bins, and approached the metal detector. The scanner beeped. Brooks asked her to step aside for a quick pat-down. She agreed without complaint. He found a belt buckle set at an odd angle. She adjusted it, passed through, and left for her gate. Passengers flowed through without trouble. Brooks stayed locked to the monitor. He watched outlines move across the screen. Electronics, toiletries, baby bottles, shoes, watches, and chargers. He moved each bin with steady precision. Then the shift broke. A man in a blue jacket approached the conveyor and held up his phone. He smiled and said he recognized Brooks from the viral clip. He said cameras gathered outside the ticket counters. He said reporters waited to see if another VIP tried to skip rules. His tone held admiration, but Brooks stayed silent. He gave no reaction. The man shrugged and placed his bag on the belt. A mother and her daughter entered next. The girl clutched a stuffed animal with a missing ear. Brooks smiled at the child and asked her to place the toy in a bin for screening. The girl looked nervous, but her mother encouraged her. The toy passed through the scanner without issue. The mother thanked Brooks and hurried toward the gate. Minutes passed. The line stretched longer. Officers opened lane 4 to help move the crowd. Brooks shifted his weight and reset the rollers on the belt. Then a call came over the radio from the control room. A flagged passenger approached the queue. No threat, but heavy warnings in his travel history. Officers prepared for a secondary search. The man arrived with a calm face and a tattered duffel bag. His clothes looked worn and stained. His eyes moved without rest. He placed his bag on the belt and stepped forward. The X-ray monitor flashed orange. The bag held metal tubes near the bottom. No shape matched them. Jensen paused the belt. Brooks signaled for a search. The man hesitated. His voice shook. He said they took everything from him last time he traveled. He said he did nothing wrong. Brooks spoke with a steady tone. The search followed routine. No threats. No intimidation. Only process. Brooks opened the duffel with gloved hands. Inside, he found cooking utensils wrapped in shirts, metal rods and measuring spoons, a travel stove. The man explained that he cooked for shelters along his trip. He fed people who slept under bridges. He gave his time to those who had nothing. Brooks found no hidden compartments. No wires, no batteries. No tools created alarm. The man passed screening and thanked Brooks with quiet gratitude. He walked toward his gate without turning back. The supervisor approached with a clipboard. She said headquarters requested a detailed account of every flagged bag that week. New oversight. New pressure. She wrote notes as Brooks spoke. He gave straightforward answers. No emotion, no gossip. Facts only. When she finished, she stepped aside to take a phone call. Her expression changed. She turned toward Brooks. She told him the congressman arrived at the airport. He walked with a security detail. His flight departed in 2 hours. His team wanted a meeting. They requested that Brooks step away from the lane. Brooks kept his breathing even. He handed the scanner control to Jensen and followed the supervisor toward a private conference room near the airline offices. A tall man in a gray suit waited inside. 2 aides sat beside him. The congressman entered with a forced smile. Reporters gathered outside the door. Security blocked their view. The congressman introduced himself with a stern tone. He said the incident with his aide spiraled out of control. He blamed media exaggeration. He asked if Brooks wanted to clear the matter publicly. The words sounded polite, but the intent felt sharp. The congressman wanted protection. He wanted the story reshaped. Brooks offered one short answer. He followed procedure. That ended the discussion. The congressman pressed harder. He said his aide felt humiliated. He said the internet made a hero out of an officer who caused disruption. Brooks stayed silent. His supervisor stepped forward and ended the meeting. Reporters outside shouted questions as the congressman left. His aides lowered their heads and rushed toward the escalator. The congressman waved cameras away with irritation. Security escorted his group through a restricted corridor. The scene dissolved, leaving the hallway quiet again. Brooks walked back to the checkpoint. His pace stayed steady. He felt no spike of pride or anger. Training taught him to remove ego from the job. He took control of the scanner again. Travelers moved through the lane with fresh tension. Some pointed. Some whispered. Some looked impressed. Some looked annoyed. Brooks focused on the next bin. A young man placed a guitar case on the belt. Brooks watched it pass through the X-ray. The strings glowed in the outline. No hidden space. Clear interior. The man thanked him and moved on. Later, a military veteran approached with a service dog. Brooks stepped aside and gave room. The dog sat calmly while a handler inspected the harness. The veteran smiled and patted the dog's head. Brooks wished him safe travel. The veteran nodded with quiet respect. Time slipped forward. Hours rolled by. The crowd thinned. Afternoon flights departed. Brooks switched to random checks near the boarding gates. His radio crackled with updates about suspicious luggage and baggage claim. Officers responded. The bag held hairdryers and personal items. False alarm. After the last afternoon wave passed, Brooks walked to the break room. He poured water into a paper cup and sat at a table in the corner. His supervisor joined him and said the congressman looked angry. She said public pressure pushed his temper higher than his sense. She said the airport would defend procedure with no hesitation. Brooks nodded once. No other words needed. He finished his break and returned to patrol. This time he walked the concourse with Officer Patel. Patel asked about the viral video. Brooks answered with short statements. He explained the search. He explained the detention. He explained the inspection of the odd device. Patel listened with respect. Halfway down the concourse, a commotion started near gate C-14. A passenger stood on a chair and shouted at the gate agents. He claimed a late departure violated his rights. He threw his boarding pass in the air. Other travelers backed away. The man shook with rage and raised his hands as if daring someone to stop him. Brooks rushed forward. He told the man to step down and calm his voice. The man ignored him. He threw a coffee cup across the carpet. Security teams ran toward the gate. Brooks grabbed the man's arm and pulled him down to the floor. The man resisted, but his strength fell short. Officers cuffed him and escorted him to the holding area. Passengers clapped in relief. Brooks walked back to his post without reaction. Later that evening, the shift reached its last hour. Brooks returned to the screening lane for closing duties. He helped wipe down the rollers and secured equipment. He stored gloves and fresh bins below the counter. The airport lights dimmed across the concourse. Cleaning crews moved out with mops and carts. Brooks clocked out and headed for the staff exit. Outside, cold air rushed across the parking structure. He walked to his car and unlocked the door. Before he opened it, a woman called out from behind him. She wore a black jacket and carried a folder. She introduced herself as a local reporter. She spoke with calm tone and requested an interview. Brooks declined. He held no interest in public credit or public attention. She asked again. He declined again. She walked away without conflict. Brooks drove home through heavy traffic. His neighborhood stayed quiet. Porch lights glowed across the street. He stepped inside his apartment and placed his badge on the table. He heated dinner, sat at the counter, and ate in silence. His phone buzzed with a message from his sister. She sent a link to a news article praising the TSA response. She said people in her office talked about his name with pride. Brooks responded with a short thank you. He explained that he only followed the rules. Before sleep, he checked his uniform for the next day. He polished his badge and placed his gloves in his bag. He set his alarm for dawn. The job held no space for ego. The job required order, patience, and focus. He respected those duties above everything else. Night settled across the city. Wind brushed the windows. Brooks lay in bed and let exhaustion pull him under. The next shift waited. The next search waited. The next passenger waited. His thoughts stayed steady. He trusted procedure. He trusted training. He trusted discipline. Morning would bring new crowds, new luggage, new flags on the X-ray. A fresh story would unfold the same way every day, one search at a time. Rain hit the terminal windows in thick sheets. Flights delayed. Passengers slept across benches. Loudspeakers announced gate changes every few minutes. TSA officer Daniel Brooks arrived before dawn, stepped through the employee entrance, and headed toward Lane 3. His steps sounded slow but steady. The viral storm spread further overnight. News anchors repeated the video. Talk shows debated it. Commentators argued about security rules and political influence. None of that changed the checkpoint. Brooks joined the morning briefing. The supervisor issued new protocol sheets. Any high-profile traveler required extra documentation. Officers logged each step of screening. No special lanes. No skipped searches. No rushed inspections. Headquarters ordered full consistency across the airport. The team signed acknowledgement forms and moved toward their stations. Lane 3 opened at 5:10 a.m. The first passengers checked IDs and placed bags on the conveyor. Brooks monitored the X-ray feed. Shapes scrolled across the screen in a steady rhythm. Laptops, jackets, backpacks, shoes, toiletries. Nothing unusual. Travelers walked through the metal detector with tired eyes and handheld coffees. The morning pace felt smooth. 20 minutes later, a man with a camera crew approached the lane. He wore sunglasses indoors and a bright jacket with a media logo on the front. He pointed the camera at Brooks and introduced himself as a journalist from a national blog. He asked for a statement. He asked for a reaction to the Congressman's public remarks. Brooks gave no answer. The supervisor stepped between them and ordered the crew to stop recording in the checkpoint zone. The crew backed away after a warning from airport police. The journalist walked toward the exit, still talking into his microphone. Brooks returned to screening. His pulse stayed controlled. He focused on each bag with the same level of care. A woman pushed a large stroller toward the belt. 2 toddlers clung to her coat. She apologized for moving slow. Brooks took the stroller frame apart for screening and placed each piece in separate bins. The woman thanked him for patience. The kids waved as they passed. Small moments like that balanced long shifts. Soon, a man in a suit approached. He held a briefcase and a white envelope stamped with a federal seal. The boarding pass agent flagged his profile. His name matched an ongoing watch list request. Not criminal, not violent, but under review by another department. Brooks asked for a secondary inspection. The man frowned and asked for a supervisor. Brooks stood firm. He asked the man to step aside. The briefcase went through a special X-ray view. The screen detected a hidden pocket behind the lining. Brooks asked the man to open the case. The man refused. He said he held classified documents. Brooks informed him that hidden compartments required inspection. The man tried to walk toward the exit. Brooks blocked his path and signaled airport police. 2 officers arrived. They instructed the man to unlock the case. He refused again. The police officer issued a direct command. The man surrendered the key. Inside the pocket sat sealed folders. No weapons. No illegal items. Still, the hidden compartment violated transport policy. The police escorted him to a holding room for further checks. The folder returned to evidence pending review. The case cleared without chaos, but the event pulled attention from every corner of the line. Passengers whispered again. Phones lifted again. Someone recognized Brooks and recorded footage. Brooks worked mechanically. He did not look at cameras. He did not react. Hours passed. The rain outside slowed. Flights resumed. The morning crush faded to steady movement. Brooks took a short break and walked toward the staff hallway. He drank water, stretched his shoulders, and checked updates on his work tablet. A memo from headquarters explained that political offices requested official statements. Airport leadership prepared responses. Officers were told to stay silent. Brooks returned to screening duty. Along the concourse, crowds returned. People rushed to flights. Workers pushed luggage carts. A floor sweeper passed and nodded in greeting. Routine looked normal on the surface, but tension sat beneath. Near noon, a sudden alert sounded from Lane 2. A passenger collapsed near the scanner. Officers called medical teams. Brooks ran across the room and checked the man's pulse. Weak but present. The man gasped for air. The paramedics arrived within seconds. They placed oxygen and lifted him onto a stretcher. His wife cried and thanked Brooks for moving fast. He said nothing beyond standard comfort. The medics rolled the stretcher toward the ambulance entrance. Brooks returned to his post. Jensen handled the scanner alone during the emergency. Brooks thanked him and resumed work. The next passenger stepped forward, calm and quiet. The checkpoint found a rhythm again. Then a radio call interrupted the flow. A passenger at baggage claim told airport police that someone followed him from the parking garage. The suspect tracked his steps through ticketing and sat near his gate. Officers responded. Brooks stayed focused, but the situation escalated. Minutes later, dispatch asked Brooks to join the response. His experience with crowd control made him useful. He left Lane 3 and walked toward Gate D7 with 2 officers. A man in a hooded jacket sat alone near a charging station. He held a backpack across his lap and scanned the crowd. His eyes locked onto the reporting passenger. The passenger pointed at him. Brooks approached with slow movements. He asked the man to stand and place the bag on the floor. The man complied but looked nervous. Brooks asked for ID. The man's hands shook. He handed a driver's license from another state. Officers ran the information through dispatch. No warrants. No criminal record. But the man had booked no flight. He had no luggage tag. He carried no boarding pass. Brooks asked for an explanation. The man said he waited for a friend. The story changed twice in 30 seconds. The officers requested a search of the backpack. The man refused. That alone triggered detention. Airport rules allowed a search if behavior indicated a threat. Officers placed the man in restraints and opened the bag. Inside sat a camera with a telephoto lens. Not illegal, still suspicious when paired with stalking behavior. Under the camera, they found credit cards with different names. None matched the ID. They found envelopes with cash and handwritten notes listing flight schedules for business travelers. The officers escorted the man to the security office. Airport police notified federal agents. The reporting passenger confirmed the man followed him from the parking structure. He wanted no charges, but security kept the investigation open. Identity fraud looked likely. Brooks completed the incident report with precise wording. He returned to Lane 3 at the edge of exhaustion, but the shift continued. Travelers carried stress and impatience. Long lines tested tempers. A man yelled about screening time. Another complained about shoe removal. Brooks faced each argument with steady instruction and no raised voice. Finally, hours later, the shift ended. Brooks clocked out and walked toward the parking ramp. The sky stayed gray. Wind pushed rain across the pavement. His phone buzzed again. A text from his sister. She said a national network planned a segment about the viral video. She said some commentators praised him. Others criticized him. Brooks deleted the message. He wanted no part of that fight. He drove home and sat in the driveway for a moment. Silence filled the car. He breathed deep, stepped out, and walked to the door. Inside, the apartment looked dark and still. He changed clothes and opened his fridge. Dinner waited in a sealed container. He heated it and sat at the table. Halfway through the meal, another knock sounded at the door. Brooks checked the peephole. An older woman stood alone with a badge from the airport's corporate office. Brooks opened the door. She introduced herself as a legal liaison. She explained that the Congressman filed a formal complaint demanding camera footage. Legal teams prepared written responses. She thanked Brooks for precise reporting. She reminded him to save every detail of the incident. He nodded and thanked her for the update. When she left, Brooks locked the door and sat again. His meal turned lukewarm. He ate anyway. This job held stress, but he never carried regret for decisions made in uniform. Every rule protected passengers. Every search protected strangers he would never meet again. Later that night, he folded his uniform for the morning shift. He polished his badge and placed his gloves in the drawer. Then he sat on the couch and turned on the television. News channels played clips of his checkpoint again. He turned them off. Noise added nothing to his work. He walked to his bedroom and shut the lights. His mind settled on the simple truth that never changed. Titles meant nothing in front of the scanner. Position meant nothing when a bag passed the X-ray. The rules stood higher than the ego of any traveler. He slept with a clear conscience. Outside, the airport lights glowed against the wet pavement. Inside, silence filled the room. Another long shift waited. The next morning started with full terminals and loud crowds. Spring travel stacked flights on top of each other. TSA officer Daniel Brooks parked in the employee structure and walked toward the staff entrance with tired eyes and steady posture. Phones flashed at him before he even reached the door. A small group of travelers recognized him and tried to record. He ignored them and kept walking. Inside, he clocked in and joined the briefing room. The supervisor handed out updated instructions from headquarters. Media crews waited near ticket counters. Reporters asked about the congressman's complaint. The airport released a statement confirming procedures. No rule changed. No apology issued. The supervisor told everyone to stay focused and avoid any public comments. The rules spoke for themselves. Brooks took his assignment at Lane 3. He powered the X-ray console and checked calibration charts. Jensen placed fresh bins on the rollers. The first wave of passengers approached with backpacks, coats, and laptop bags. Brooks scanned IDs and watched for nervous movement. The belt turned. The scanner beeped. The morning worked like every other shift. 20 minutes later, a father and his teenage son stepped forward. The boy carried a musical instrument case. Brooks asked him to place the case on the belt. The father watched with tension in his eyes. The X-ray showed a clean outline. No hidden compartments. Brooks cleared the case. The father relaxed and thanked him. The small moment passed without a single camera. Then a woman stepped toward the conveyor with a purse and 2 plastic bags. She placed everything in bins. The scanner flagged dense shapes inside the purse. Brooks asked her to step aside for a bag search. She nodded and waited. He opened the purse and found heavy metal jewelry and a solid perfume container. Nothing illegal. He repacked the purse and returned it. She smiled and walked toward her gate. An hour passed. The checkpoint stayed calm. The internet story faded in the noise of everyday travel. Brooks focused on the next set of bags: shoes, jackets, tablets, toiletries. The work remained simple and strict. Then a familiar face appeared near the lane. Not the congressman. Not his aides. A different man in a suit with a stiff walk and a direct stare. He looked like a staff member from a federal agency. He joined the queue without comment. His turn reached the conveyor. He placed a metal briefcase in a bin and removed his jacket. He approached the scanner with slow steps. The briefcase passed under the X-ray panels. The screen flashed a block of dense material. Brooks asked for a secondary search. The man tried to speak, but his words sounded guarded. Brooks explained the process. The man agreed and stepped aside. Brooks used gloves and wiped the case with a detection swab. The machine cleared. He asked for a key. The man hesitated for a moment, then opened the locks. Inside sat rows of organized documents, a padded inner shell, and a metal container no larger than a phone. It held no wires or power source. Brooks removed it and opened it under supervision. Inside rested sealed computer chips and data storage units. The man explained that he worked for a government lab and traveled to a secure meeting. He had paperwork ready. Brooks read the paperwork and confirmed signatures. No conflict. The man closed the case and thanked him for staying professional. Passengers in the line watched with silence. The officer did not treat him like a threat. He treated him like every other traveler. The case passed. The man walked toward his gate. The supervisor stepped to Brooks and whispered that someone waited for him near the staff hallway. She would cover the scanner. Brooks followed her instructions and walked toward the meeting point. A short woman in a business suit stood beside the wall. She introduced herself as a representative from airport administration. She said federal agencies reached out to commend the checkpoint actions. Her words sounded direct and short. She passed Brooks a sealed folder with a short letter noting accuracy and calm handling under pressure. Brooks thanked her and placed the folder in a locker. When he returned to the lane, a new line had formed. He resumed work without delay. Near midday, a report came from the baggage office. A traveler received a damaged suitcase with a broken zipper and a torn lining. The traveler accused a handler of theft. The office requested a security officer with inspection authority. Brooks headed there with another officer. They met the traveler and inspected the suitcase. Inside, clothing and books sat untouched. No signs of theft. The tier matched a conveyor snag. The traveler accepted compensation paperwork and left without anger. Small conflicts often needed simple answers. During the walk back, Brooks passed a crowd near Gate B9. A loud argument escalated between two passengers waiting for boarding. One accused the other of cutting in line. Voices rose. A punch threatened. Brooks stepped forward and separated them. He ordered both to calm down. Airport police arrived and wrote incident reports. The gate agents resumed boarding. The flight pushed back on time. Brooks returned to Lane 3 again. The afternoon rush hit hard. Long lines formed across the floor. Travelers grumbled. Kids cried. Businessmen checked watches every few seconds. Brooks worked fast, but security never rushed to please impatience. Every bag received a clear scan. Every traveler followed the same path. A family approached with 4 suitcases and a stroller. The mother apologized for the load. Brooks helped collapse the stroller frame and placed it on the belt. The father removed each child's jacket and shoes. The scanner showed nothing suspicious. The family passed through. The kids waved at Brooks and laughed at the body scanner lights. Small distractions helped keep the tension low. Minutes later, a call crackled over the radio. A suspicious trash bag sat near the restrooms in Concourse F. Officers needed assistance. Brooks switched lanes with Jensen and headed there. A crowd formed around the hallway. Officers cleared the area and set a perimeter. The bag looked lumpy and taped shut. No tags, no identification. Standard protocol required a bomb technician. Brooks moved passengers back with a calm tone. The technician arrived with tools and a portable scanner. The bag was cut open with a remote device. Inside sat food wrappers, clothing, and a broken laptop. Someone likely abandoned it to avoid baggage fees. The technician gave the all clear. Crowds returned to normal. Brooks took reports from witnesses and headed back toward security. The rest of the afternoon looked calmer. Luggage rolled across polished floors. Boarding groups lined up. Airport workers cleaned seats and emptied waste bins. A police officer walked past with a K9 unit. The dog sniffed corners and nodded along with the handler's commands. Brooks returned to his lane. The supervisor tapped his shoulder and said someone waited in the terminal office. He walked there and entered a small conference room. The airport director sat with 2 staff members. She pointed to a screen showing social media feeds. Reports from major networks covered the day's travel rush. The viral video appeared again. The director explained that complaints from political offices continued, but federal officials backed the checkpoint decisions. No violations, no misconduct. Procedures stayed intact. She asked Brooks if he needed time off. He said no. She handed him printed guidance on media requests. She told him every reporter had been redirected to the airport's communications team. She said he handled a hard moment with discipline. He nodded once and stepped out. Back at the checkpoint, the last evening flights prepared for boarding. Brooks cleared another line of passengers. A woman with a service dog thanked him for kindness. A medical worker heading home from a long shift thanked him for patience with her equipment bags. A group of tourists took a picture near the gate, careful not to aim at officers. The airport settled into night mode. The shift ended past midnight. Brooks secured the scanner and placed gloves in the disposal bin. He clocked out and walked toward the parking deck. The airport lights reflected across wet pavement after a steady night of rain. He reached his car, opened the door, and paused before sitting down. His phone buzzed. A message from the airport director. The congressman requested a private meeting to deliver another complaint. The director denied it. She sent written answers and reinforced procedural authority. The congressman's office went silent after that message. Brooks placed his phone in the cup holder and started the engine. The drive home stayed silent except for the hum of rain against the windshield. When he reached his building, he locked his vehicle and stepped inside his apartment. The air smelled clean and warm. His uniform hung from the hook. His fridge held dinner in a container. His mind felt calm. He sat at the table and ate. No phone, no television, no noise. The viral storm made his face public, but his work remained the same. His job existed to protect travelers, not to chase headlines. He followed rules because safety demanded it. He slept well because his conscience stayed clear. Later that night, he placed his badge, gloves, and boots near the door. Morning, waited with another shift. Another bag. Another checkpoint. Another moment where rules mattered. The next story brings a new confrontation inside a crowded terminal, where a traveler hides more than luggage. Cameras will watch. Officers will respond. Nothing will unfold the way people expect. If you want a free guide that shows how real body cam and security footage build suspense without fake drama, the next upload includes it at no cost. Stay close. The next video arrives soon.